Yeah. Sorry, what was the question? I just stepped out. Hello.
The question is where the Agemos fit in the political structure of the Jebus.
Oh well. So Agemo is a festival. In um many Yoruba cities actually, but popularly, popularized by the Jebu people. It's basically just what they celebrate, I think, in August. And I think the significance is just to let like 16 Amago as Amago, sorry, Agemo masquerades from different villages that make up the Jebu enclave, come together, go to the Moson shrine, where they now carry out all sorts of rituals, and then thereafter they celebrate. Then it's I know that there's also the um, significance of the Agemo in terms of offering prayers for the land and
Yeah,
protecting.
sorry, I missed signal for a minute. I'm back now.
All right,
Yeah,
I'll come back to you.
Go on, Mr. Dapo. Sorry.
yeah, just basically praying for the land and appeasing the Agemo deity, which is again a significant Jebu deity. Yeah, I think that's basically it. Yeah.
So were the Agemos not the original rulers, or when it was more of a loosely confederacy in the 16 places before the Awujale, the first Awujale, and then he transformed them to a new title called the Olojas. Correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't that what it was?
Agemo
What
is
do you mean by the
okay.
original? Sorry.
Yes, go on.
Yeah. What do you mean by the original rulers?
So you know that Ijebu was already a structured society before the Awujale showed up, before the first Awujale. So what the Awujale did is the same thing as what Oduduwa did in Ife. Oduduwa, Ijebu had 16 confederacies. Ife had 13. Now Oduduwa consolidated and centralized it, and that was also what the Awujale did. So I'm not sure. I think the Agemos used to be the titled holders before the Awujale showed up, but they still do festivals in honor of them. I'm not sure. I think that's what it is, but because it's a while I read it, and that's what I thought I read. So I think an Ijebu person will be able to to
Well, what
to.
I do know is that yes, it was Obata that really initiated the idea of having an agemo or all alagemo. Sorry, having like an annual assembly of all the alagemo priests called alagemos. What am I saying? Having the agemo priests called alagemos converge at Emotion to again, like I said, appease the agemo deity and also pray for the town and protect against rebellion. And there are 16 of like there are these priests are summoned from 16 places across Ijebu land. But the most famous ones, which are the three Agemo priests, the Oni Jagbori of Imoson, then you have the idea of Agoiwi and Ugi of Idogi in Ijebu. That's basically what I know about the Agemo, but I wouldn't know the historicity of the actual cult. I just know the details of what they do and how they are significant in Ijebu land.
All right, thank you. Uh, Bunker is Bunker. Bunker, can you go ahead?
Yes. So does anybody have something to say about the Agemo so that we can have a clarification before we go on?
Yeah, so
About Agemo, nothing else. So yeah.
Agemo is a deity, it's represented in terms of a masquerade, and it's found almost all over Ijebu land, even in as far as Ikorodu, to
Yeah,
the
that's the festival, but we're talking about the real origin of the Agemos themselves. That's
Yeah,
just
the
the
yeah,
Agemo is a
it's a
deity.
it's a
So the priests
fertility
that worship the
deity.
Agemo are the Agemo priests. And they are
Yeah,
taken from the 16 places, 16 locations across Ijebu land.
The reason
So,
why I asked that question, if I
yeah.
may, is that I heard that when the Jebus were coming in through Obatala, I'm not Obatala, what am I saying? Obanta. that they came from Italia or something like that, and the Agemos were pretty much at the military commandos at that point. But it's a vague story that
Absolutely,
I heard,
absolutely.
so I'm not certain. That's why I was like, are there a political structure when you're
So
mentioning
the
structure
most
of
Yes,
Igbo?
information.
there were 16 of them, and they were like military. That's what I read. But that's not something I can say confidently because it's been a while that I did. Yeah.
So sorry, Mr. Bunka. So
If I can
in
speak for
Professor
the
Akintoye's book,
Agemo,
he
the
links
Agemo
Agema to. Sorry, can I quickly make a point? He links Agema to fertility. That's the most he said about Agema, fertility deity. That's what he said Agema was.
Thank you, my brother Allah. Bonka, please go ahead.
Okay. Thanks. I have one of my elders from Ijebu that kind of gives me and he's deep in these things, even in the spiritual ones.
Mr.
So I'm going
Boka,
to talk to
ẹ má
him.
má béèrè, ẹ má gbàgbé question mi. I asked a
Chetty,
question. The relationship, because it's very, very important. So that
so
Ishekiri and the Ijebus.
Itakiri people are migrants from the old Ijebu kingdom, but it's something I don't want to go into because I'm always uncomfortable about trying to link one clan of people to another because the Shekiri people may have moved on. And so I don't want us to kind of kind of infuse DNA with the people that probably would want to have their identity. But
Okay,
I know that they were migrants from Ijebu.
okay, okay. I think
Can I
Mr.
quickly say something real quick?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so Mr. Bunka is right about the fact that Ishakiri people are from Ijebu. They are from different parts of Yoruba land. Some a little bit farther away from Ijebu in the Ondo area, but they
Ilaje.
are migrants. Exactly, migrants from Yoruba land, and they actually didn't move on. They hold strongly to that Yoruba identity. In fact, the Yoruba rally that held in Ibadan some months ago, they sent their representatives and they participated. They still strongly hold on to the Yoruba
Yes,
identity.
yes, yes. Now why they
So
use turn at
can,
destruction for Delta?
yeah, can I quickly chime in? So I think they are. One could say they are from. They are from five places, if I may put it that way. So there's Ijebu, Ilaje, Ondo, Owo, and Edo. So you would find semblances.
and the Gala.
And Igala, well, yes, and Igala, because even Igala itself is very much close to a lot of the things that we do in Yoruba here. So yes, so you could see all these semblances of, all the groups I've mentioned in what the Shekiri do as a group.
Their language is 78% close to Yoruba.
All right, thank you, everybody. Bonka, do you want to proceed?
Okay. So now the stature of the story, now that we have been able to do the background of Ijebu kingdom, their spirituality, their political structure, we now want to go into history of their legends. We want to talk about some of their legends. We want to talk about some of their campaigns. We want to talk about the role they played in the Kiriji War, the role they played when Yoruba land fell into chaos. So, like I said earlier, Yoruba nation was divided into four zones. There was the zone to the north, which I said was Oyo, the zone to the west, which was Ife, the south, which was Ijebu, and to the east, which was Benin. They had a gentleman agreement that people would not cross into each other's territory. So Oyo was building its empire. It cannot cross Ondo boundaries. So that's why you see that Oyo went more towards Dahomey and Porto Novo area. Benin, building its empire, cannot cross Ondo boundary on the other side. So Ondo State was a buffer zone for both kingdoms. Benin went towards Onitsha and the Biafra, Bright of Biafra region, going towards Cameroon side. Oyo could not encroach to the south. So it did something clever and took from two angles. It went up north towards the Jebba during the reign of Alaafin Ojigi and conquered till it got to the river Niger. That was why it's called Odoya. It's Oyo people named it Odoya in our version, in honor of Oya, who they said was Shango's wife. But according to modern history, Mungo Park discovered it and it's River Niger. So, but well, we knew it as Odoya before Mungo Park. But then it now cleverly went from the side of Ife and then moved towards the south to go and conquer the coastal regions of Dahomey and Porto Novo without bordering with the Ife axis. So that was the structure. Now war came. The Fulani came and then they started invading from the north and people started scattering. People started dispersing. There used to be a very popular market. This market is called the Apomu market. So the trade we said that the Jebu people used to have, and by the way, Jebu was divided into two kingdoms. There was the Jebu Ode and the Jebu Igbo, as we said. So the Jebu Ode is where the real commerce goes on. The Jebu Igbo is the more of the more conservative elements that engage more in farming and basic lifestyle, less of the commercial people. Now the Jabud they represented the more of the mercantile class. So that was the structure at that time. When the Oyo people Oyo Empire was destroyed. I wouldn't say destroyed. It was sacked because Oyo exists today. When it was sacked by the Fulani, many of them ran down south to to towards the Badon area, towards the Jai area, towards the Egba area. So that was now coming into the Awujale's area of influence. There used to be a great market called Apomu where um Ijebu used to deal with the people of the interiors. So people from the interiors will come to Akpomu, and then people from Ijebu would also come to Akpomu. So they brought what the Portuguese brought from the coast, and they brought the slaves and the market products too from the interiors. That was the
Mr.
point
Bonka,
of
sorry,
exchange.
security information. Sorry.
Yes.
Was I know where you're going. So this is a very big question I want to throw open. And maybe other people will also contribute to this. The Ijebu and Owu War, which Ife also participated in,
I'm gonna
did,
get there.
I'm
Yeah.
coming, which happened at Akpomo Market. Did it happen before the decline, the fall of Oyo-Ile in 1810, or after? That's the issue, the timeline that I've been trying to actually decode. Because Owu was the first Yoruba city state that got sacked. So and I want us to actually clarify that area. Thank you.
So first of all, Oyoele did not fall in 1810. Oyoele fell in 1835. That was after the Oleduwe War. That happened in 1835. That's firstly.
Sorry,
Second,
sorry, sorry, sorry. You know the reason why I said that? I started counting the decline of Oyo. It might be between 1810 and 1812. The decline of Oyo started when Aule fell and the Lorin Afonja and his Fulani allies took over Ilorin. Don't forget that Ibadan was established in 1824, and the emergence of Ibadan, Modakeke, and Ijayi started as refugees city, IDP camps, internally displaced people, which later transformed into city states and barracks, just barrack and city state. So if you say Oyo fell 1835, I understand where you are talking from, that it was after the Eleduwe War, that is actually where the problem started. But I will not agree to that, because the Ibadan people, the refugees flowing from the Oyo Empire, they already founded Ibadan before 1835, which you're talking about. They already founded they already in Modakeke, they already flowed into Ijayi, another Yoruba city state, which actually started the internal strife within the Yoruba people. So the question I'm trying to actually get, because this is the reason, in fact, this particular question and argument even supports the narrative that you and Adedapo have been talking about, and Anola, that the Ijebu people have always respected Ife to be the source of all Yoruba people, because the Ijebu people fought on the side of Ife in order
It is
to
not.
get
It is not
peace.
because of their respect for Ife. It was a business interest. It was a business interest war.
It was
They
part
were
of
just
that.
trying to protect their business interest.
It
That's
was
one.
part of the. I'm coming,
And then,
sir. It
two,
was.
the migration started after the Elitewe War. Ibadan and Ijaye were not IDP camps. There were people living there in both places. Ibadan people came there to displace them with the power of numbers. So I don't agree that they were IDP camps. So I'm
Okay,
just
let me
trying
tell
to
you.
put
Let me come.
perspective.
Okay, let me come into that. Ibadan is Ibadan. Now, when I say IDP camps, I'm just trying to use lay I don't know how I'm going to put it, layman terms, so that people can actually understand what we're talking about. I'm sorry, what the history of the little point we'll be making here tonight is not to cause strife within Yoruba groups, but I'm going to say it because I don't want to delve into this. The present day Ibadan, most of the
So
inhabitants of
I reckon me, I don't appreciate what you're doing because you're trying to protect Oyo, and I don't appreciate that.
I'm
Don't
coming,
be pro.
I'm sorry. I want to say this, sir. The present day Ibadan was majorly inhabited by Egba people. So the influx of the Oyo people coming from the Oyo Empire displaced the Egba people. That was why they moved towards Abeokuta, etc. So I'm sorry. So this was actually part of the reason that caused the bad blood between several Yoruba city states and kingdoms. So when you say that Ibadan, people have been living there, I think I'm not going to accept that, because several historians and several scholars actually put the establishment of Ibadan. In fact, Ibadan was actually founded by an Oyo warlord, Ife warlord. At least there has been different arguments.
Maye, his name is Maye.
Some people say Maye, some people say Lagelu. There is also disagreement to that. So Lagelu, that is said Lagelu actually did that. So
When Ibadan people showed up, when Oyo people showed up at Ibadan, the leader at Ibadan was Maye,
Maye,
and
Maye,
his name was Maye, and he was banished from the city before
yes.
Lakonle now took over.
So
So that
1884.
was
So the establishment of Ibadan as a city state, that it came up. In fact, Ibadan came to limelight. 1810, there was nothing called Ibadan. 1815, there was nothing called Ibadan. So the establishment of Ibadan city state started in 1824, between the 1820s and 1825. So that is around, that has been, some people say 1822, some people say 1824, some people say 1823. I'm going to stop here so you can continue, sir.
Where was old Oyo?
okay, Mr. Bami.
Bunka, please, where was old Oyo? Old Oyo.
So when you say old Oyo, what do you mean? Because there were three Oyos. There was Oyo Ile, there's Oyo Katunga, there's Oyo Igboho, then there's Oyo Atiba. So when you say old Oyo, which one?
I think the thing in I think the old Oyo Oyo Igbo is the new Igbo now, the northern part of Oyo State. Abi?
Oh,
No,
we'll deal with this later. What is
there's
Mr.
no
Babu?
way. No, there's no way you can be talking about the old Oyo when if you look at the current Ibadan, where this current Ibadan history, and then you look at the history of the Hijaye, you will see that this current Oyo, this Oyo now, have been established before they had this Ibadan. So it's not that they have Ibadan. So that I'm sure I stand corrected because I'm seeing that Olato is here. Ijaye, which has this our brother relative Kurumi, have, if you look at that history, the archaeology should be able to tell us how it has been. So if you look at Oyo, Ijaye Orile Ijaye or Ijaye Orile, maybe that's the word, or Ijaye
Mr.
Orile.
Felicia, Mr.
That
Felicia, Mr.
yes,
Felicia.
sir. Yes,
Sorry,
sir.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Mr. Bonka, Mr. Bonka,
Yes, I'm here.
ẹ jọ̀ọ́ ẹ dáhùn question yẹn. The real Oyo, go into the history, please, because I know you know it. So please, so that we
Yeah,
don't disrupt your flow.
there was a first Oyo that was the Oyo that was founded by Ronio. Then Shango took the capital and moved it. This was destroyed during the reign of Alaafin Onigbogi. Then his grandson came back and then founded the Oyo Igboho. And that was when they expanded into an empire. Then I think it's Oba Moro. Oba Moro. I think his name was Oba Moro. He now moved to Oyo Katunga. And then Oyo Katunga was in existence until the fall of Alaafin Oluewu. And then the next king, Alaafin Atiba, moved to this new Oyo. That's why they called
Sorry,
this Oyo
Bonka.
Oyo
That
Atiba.
should be Obamoro Kojinosiwo.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that was the four stages, but that's another whole topic on its own, and I think it's gonna totally derail what we're here because we're talking about Ijebu. That's why I don't want us to, and I just don't want us to lean. Every time we talk, we always end up talking about Oyo. That's why I'm
I
trying
was gonna
to,
say that because it's
yeah,
as if we are going towards Oyo now.
yeah. So, and I want us to remain at Ijebu. This is Ijebu's day. We've had a lot of time to trash Oyo. Let's give that honor to Ijebu. That's
Yeah,
my
yeah, that's what's up.
yeah. That's my view. But um, I can understand the sentiments. But I'm a detribalized Yoruba man. Of course, I'm not a Nigerian. And much as I admire Oyo a lot, I might say some things that I may not agree with, but I'm still going to have my view on that. So, um, well, Akpomu markets. These Akpomu markets, the tension started after the decline of Oyo. That is true. But there were still some powerful people at Oyo. That included Toyeje, who was still very, Toyeje was still very rampant at Ogbomoso then. We still had Adegun. Please mute everybody. We still had Adegun at Ikoyi. We still have Edun at Bogon. So they were the ones who sent a message to Iwo that they did not like the way Oyo people were being sold at Akpomu. Now, Akpomu was a very strategic, important market for Ijebu people. Like I was saying earlier, that was the center point of where Ijebus met people at the interiors and the north brought their goods. So it was like a middle ground for people on the interiors and people from the coast. Now, Toyeje and Adegun sent a message to the people of Owu that they should help them to destroy Akpomu, that because of the Yoruba slaves that are being sold there, Owu people were very warlike people. They were great swordsmen. They understood how to use the sword. And I mean, they said there's a proverb then, ipe obimo ni ogu, ó wá ń béèrè pé ṣé akọni àbábo ni, èwo ló gbádùn nínú àwọn méjèèjì. And that's not meant to be disrespectful, but it's just to say how aggressive they were. They were super aggressive people. Now, um, oh, my daughter just came. How am I going to block this door? So, okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so they were warlike people, and they were recruited to help them kind of destroy Akomo, and they did a good job. They destroyed a lot of they destroyed Akomo, they destroyed the Kire, they destroyed Itahakon, they destroyed Iseyin Odo, many hamlet cities that surrounded Ife, that were under Ife. And this was where the Awujale got involved. But this is the alliance between Ife and Ijebu started from here, because as they were destroying them, as they were destroying, as the Owu people were destroying Ife people, I think the leader of, I've forgotten the name. I think his name is Shigun Singh. That was the commander at Ife that was sent to fight, and he could not overpower the Owu people. So when they fought the last war, they decimated them so badly that out of shame, they didn't want to go back to Ife. So they went to Iwo and they were begging the king at Iwo to keep them as hostage. But the king said no, he can't do that because the Owu will come for him. He was the one who now negotiated with the Awujale to come to their aid. That was where that war started. And it started about 5 years after. Now, all this was happening, then Ibadan came to light. The new nation at Ibadan was formed. Ibadan people showed up there. They built a great barracks there. So there was already a tension going on from that at that point with the destruction of Akpomu. But now the central focus of the markets now came to Ibadan. Ibadan now became the center point instead of Akpomu. There's now an array that showed up at Ibadan at that time. His name was Are Latosa. Are Latosa, now, two of his predecessors have been trying to, this is what happens. They will go to the north, and then they will conquer all those areas at Ekiti and Ijesha. To the north, maybe not Ijesha. I don't think they conquered Ijesha. But say Ijesha was their vassal, definitely. But they conquered some Igomino areas because they didn't want people attacking each other, and they didn't want those places falling back into the hands of Ilorin. So they put their Ajeles there. But then they were now realizing that they need to have a more centralized Yoruba nation and a strong capital. And the first person who started that was Ibikunle, Balogun Ibikunle. He started the kind of negotiation, bringing back all of the Ibadan people and saying, let's find a way to build a stronger, centralized Yoruba nation so that we don't have to worry about Ilorin taking Ekiti, taking this. So he didn't succeed before he died. And then some years after, his successor, Arelatosa, now decided that what the Bikule could not do, he was going to do it. But he wanted to do it through war. So he was desperately wanted to cut off the monopoly that Ijebu has always had on guns. He was desperate to cut that off. So what he did now was that he started now fighting Egba people. So my daughter just came. Let me step down for a minute and find a quiet place to continue. Let me leave the stage for someone else to talk, and then I'll join back in a minute. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Arákùnrin Ọlá.
Majaki, Mr. Are, Mr. Didapo can continue.
We can take questions now.
Okay.
Quickly, I just wanted to chip in something, if I may. Ṣẹ́rí tàn tí Mr. Gbonka ń sọ yẹn nípa Àpòmù àti Ìkirè àti Ìwó pẹ̀lú ìjà tó ṣẹlẹ̀ ń bẹ̀ yẹn. So tá bá lọ wo ìwé Ọmọ Alátẹ Ìlẹ̀kẹ̀, it is explicitly explained there. So tá bá lè search ẹ̀, a rí pé it is exactly how we explained it. Thank you. Omo Alateleke. That's the
Ale
title of the book.
Omo Alateleke.
Mm.
Eshepupo. Once again, thank you for joining in today. Today we are exploring the Ijebu ancestry and the wrong narratives. And this is Yoruba Nation Room on the Clubhouse. If you have not yet followed the room, kindly click on the greenhouse icon and follow the room. Do we have anyone with questions or contributions or comments? Please flash your mic. I'm going to call you. Ola. Who else? Dakbo. Okay. All right. Dakbo, please go ahead. Then I'll call Ola.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, house. I just wanted to ask if we've spoken about Ijebu Igbo, specifically, there's this myth that they are Igbo Ijebu. So please, I just want to understand where that one came from.
Sorry,
Thank you.
that they are what?
Igbo,
That they are Igbos, right?
yes, please.
All
Thank you
right.
very much.
Who is
Please,
All right.
supposed to? Who is
just
supposed to
just
be?
ju- just let us. Today is Ijebu Day, so please let us know. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Ola, please go ahead with your question. Then I'll come back to my brother Fodosho.
Hi everyone. I'm from Osun State, and there is a village pretty close to my town. It's called Ijebu-Jesha. So I want to ask if there is any historical connection with Ijebu in Ogun State and with the one in Osun State.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Fodosho, please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, well, mine is not much of a question. I just came in not quite long. Um, First and foremost, I think I stand corrected in a particular forum by Hola, which a lot of people have this belief that Ijebu, or let me not say a lot of people, the Awujale, this current Awujale, directly said that they are Wadas and that they are from South Sudan or Sudan, and that they got to the place 500 years and all everything. So
Yeah.
I don't know whether, yes, I
Yes,
don't know whether you're talking about, okay, but
we have
having
treated
said
that.
that,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, well, I even understand it eventually. Um, because I remember that, I saw a great grandson, a very great grandson of Balogun Kuku in the room, who I also pinged to come in to share that, to share
So
the
I'm back.
idea.
If you need me, I'm back now.
Okay, yes, 1 second, sir. Um, Now, the Ijebu Jesha, I'm sure when we go by the war that had happened in the Yoruba history, you will see that even when Bonka had talked about Owu, there is really Owu. And if you look at that Owu now, Owu have probably been divided into about 3 or 4, if not 4. There is Owu Ijebu, there is Owu Abeokuta, there is Owu Kuta. So, and then you now go by the other ones. You know that there is, even in Ijebu, they have Ijebu Fe, but Ijebu Fe is directly a son of Oromiyan. So there are names like that will go in when I'm sure we will. I'm just trying to use the style to give it to all the people that will talk. So the Ijebu Jesha, the war led them to that region. If you look at it, Ibadan, that Bonka had talked about, have Ijebu. that have gone to settle. I think when I don't know whoever have said that the Ijebu have Ibadan have a IDP camp. Ijebu, yes, because there was a part of Balogun Kuku which the Awujale and some Ijebu people had this, they had problem with him, and he was going here and there. He went to
No,
Ijebu.
Kuku's case was after, not before. Kuku, in fact,
Okay, well,
Kuku's problem was that he was on the side of Ibadan when Awujale did the trade embargo. I'm going to get to that.
okay, good. So you know what I'm trying to just do is that I'm just throwing it. I don't want to directly talk about it. I'm just throwing it to you guys who are like an expert, so that I will expect that you can really, really go into the depth of it. You understand how how Ibadan have a lot of Ijebu. In fact, there is a place called Isale Ijebu. And then if you look at it, that even when you look at how Ijebu went to settle in Ibadan, even down to Awolowo, all that place that they live together, they call it Ijebu bypass, how they live together, how, you understand? So Ijebu has a strong history also in Ibadan. And they
Thank you so
even
much.
eventually had become Oba in those regions. So I just want us to touch here and there of all of those things for people to understand it.
Thank you so
Thank you.
Thank you so much, my brother. My brother Puton, please go ahead and we can go back to the speakers.
Yeah, I just want to, just because I've been hearing the story that Mr. Gbonka, the whole history, I just wanted to ask a question if he knows anything about the difference between Ode Lemo and Ode Remo, if there's any significance between the both, that Ijebu area and Remo.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, I'll come back to Bonka. Bonka, do you want to address those questions, please?
So I thought we talked about the Remo situation because I'm trying not to generate controversies. So I'm trying to avoid giving answers that would generate controversies on the Remo Ijebu situation. So let me
Mr.
step
Bunker.
down for. Alright, do you want to go?
No
I
comment.
Let
I
me
think Adidako want to go. Let Adidako go, please.
Yeah, I'll start with the Jebu Igbo question, then I'll come to the dilemma or the Remo question. So the Jebu Igbo, definitely that's just laughable. The Igbo there is literally forest. Not It has nothing to do with the Igbo people.
So Igbo just means I want to Olaju in the Ijebu side. So then the
No.
cosmopolitan
No,
ones is Ijebu Ode.
no,
Wait.
It's not
that's
even.
not what it means, sir.
It means
It's a
farm.
forested zone.
Yeah,
Yeah, farm.
exactly. It's a
Forested
forested
zone.
Yes,
zone.
Okay.
so they're not city people like the Ijebu Ode. They're not embracing commerce. They're more
No, no,
farmers.
no, no,
They're
no.
Yes,
more.
yes, I
That's
understand what
That's what it is.
Bunka
That's
is
what
saying.
it
Yes,
is.
that's
Yeah.
what it is.
well. That's okay. So
Not
let me
really.
let me start with the story. So
I'm gonna give the story behind it.
See, Mr. Bunka is right. I'll be the but I tell you.
Okay, I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. All I'm saying is, if I give the story, perhaps you will understand why, it's not necessarily about the people, right? It's actually more about the environment. Because if you say that the people are not like, commerce oriented or whatever, and that's the reason why they're called Igbo, no. It's more about the environment of, that particular place or geography. So the oral history says that there was one Ademakin who was from Oshimore family in Ijebu-Ode, and he was a very powerful hunter. And while he was sojourning across that area, he met someone called Elegi, who was also a very powerful hunter from Imushi or Ijebu Mushi or Sosha. Now, both of them, in the course of hunting together, the legend is that they encountered an elephant. In the course of slicing the elephant, Ademakin was then, given the nickname Erimo Lucy, so which is the Orimo Lucy title that is in Jabubo today, and his wife Shokme was the one who then advised him to relocate to a place where wildlife was available. So basically, go into the forested area. And then Rimolusi now relocated to that place, and that place is then called Ijebu-Igbo. Now, there is actually so one thing that they always so there's a saying, not a saying per se, it's not like a saying, but there's this thing they say, Orimolusi Ijebu, ó wà nínú igbó lọ́kọ̀ọ̀kan, so meaning that Orimolusi man is in the forest alone, something like that. So that also exemplifies the possibility of the name being tied to the Orimolusi and the environment that he was. Then there's also another account that there was a man called what's his name now? Um Onoyelu. Yes, Onoyelu, who was actually the one that left Ijebu Ode because his brother had ascended the throne while he was absent, while he was away. So he, out of anger, left Ijebu Ode and went to settle in a place that was forested, now called Ijebu Igbo. And then he settled in that Shokpe or Shokpe area, which is again where the Orimolusi is actually situated. And then there were other towns that, so people then came and somehow converged in that area too. They came and settled in that area, and that led to other settlements that constitute Ijebu-Igbo, so Oke Shokpe, Ojowo, Atikori, Okeagbo, Japara. These are all the constituent towns that make up Ijebu-Igbo today. So that's really the two versions, the oral history, versions of oral history behind um, Ijebu. So I guess that answers that question. I hope. Then the
Can
one
I
about,
quickly add something to that,
oh yeah, sure.
Mr. Adedapo?
Yes, you can. Yes, you
Oh,
can.
okay. So I was just going to add that the second version you mentioned about Onoyelu and the brother of Fiona, that's the earliest known account of Ijebu Igbo. And historians usually favor that which has been earlier to take background from those people than the one which came later in the course of time. And also, I want to add that Ijebu Ode, Ijebu Igbo, Igbo there is just the forested zone. Ode in Ijebu Ode is a old Yoruba term. Tomafin refers to capital ìlú. So wọ́n máa ń lò lọ́wọ́ Ondo side, Ode Ondo, ibẹ̀ ni capital ìlú yẹn, Ode Ìṣẹ̀kírì. Some Yoruba towns use Ode to prefix or suffix the capital of the whole country. And in
Just
some places, they use
Yorùbá
Ile.
ìgboro.
They use Ile in some other parts of Yoruba land as to refer to the capital. Bí Ọ̀yọ́ Ilé, Ilé Ifẹ̀, àti oríṣiríṣi bẹ́ẹ̀. So as regards Igbo people don't call their own name. Wọ́n ń pè ní Igbo. Igbo ló ń pè. So like this, the intonation is do, Igbo. So Igbo ní títí tí tá à ń sọ yìí. Ìyẹn Remi. So it's different things. Writing it using English people's letters ló máa ń confuse wa. But if there was a way of writing using our own indigenous letters, you will see that these are different letters completely, because one is Igbo and the other is Igbo. I just wanted to add that. And there is no account of the Ijebu Igbo people that says they are Igbo people.
Thank you so much, my brother. Bonka, do you want to proceed?
Yes. So where were we? Okay. So the Apple market, the Apple situation, the the
My
situation.
question has not been answered, sir.
What was the question, sir?
Odelemo and Oderemo.
Sorry, if I could,
I'm going to pass on that.
Ade-
Who wants to answer?
Anybody wanted to talk about it?
Um,
Adeboye,
yeah. So
Adeboye. Okay.
Odelemo is in Shagam. Oderemo is just one of the towns that make up the Remo North. So there are two Remos. You have the southern Remo and the northern Remo. So Oderemo is actually a distinctive town in Remo North, while Odelemo is more like a community within Shagamu, which is in itself a town. The history of Oderemo is not linked per se to the Lemo. But I mean, people can have other versions. But what I do know is that the Remo town also came to be significant during the time when the Remo had to forge an alliance to protect themselves against, I believe it was the Egba that were actually trying to attack them at the time. And, they formed an alliance among themselves with the Remo, Ikpara, Ishara, Elisha, Ikene, 13 of them actually. And then but in terms of the people that settled in these places, one could argue that they probably came from different areas. So there will be people who were even from Arauke people. There were those who probably were normally Jebu people who moved into that area too, and then those who also came from other remote towns. But they do have their own oral history too, and some of them even link it to Ile Ife too, saying that the place was formerly called Olode Remo, and the person that came there was I believe Obalaron. Can't remember. It's vague right now
Oba
unless I
Laurent.
go. Sorry,
Oba Laurent.
Obalaron. Yes, Obalaron, who was the first Olode of the place or something. So it's a very it's well, to just simply answer your question, there are two different towns, and they definitely have they have different histories.
Very
Thank
accurate information, Dr. Adedapo. Very accurate. Thank you very much.
Correct. Thank you. Bonka, can we please proceed?
Okay, so now if you remember what I said earlier, I spoke about the four power blocks. Now Ibadan rising to be a power block and actually building a mini empire because Ibadan actually succeeded more than Oyo in actually building because now Oyo never an empire over places like Ijesha, places like Ekiti, places like part of Ondo, but Ibadan actually annexed all these places under its empire and actually placed Ajeles there. Even in Ijesha, that was what caused the tension between Ogedengbe and Ijesha when his choice of the new Owa was rejected and Ibadan placed another person. I think that was in the late 1880s when Oweweniye and Odigbadigba were contesting for the Ijesha throne. So that made the Awujale very uncomfortable. He didn't like the closeness Ibadan was to him. He didn't like the power they were ascribing, they were getting. He didn't like they were genius. They were of genius military skills. Their military skills were so powerful that small as that Modakeke is, three times if we tried to invade and sack it, even though they were like I think one third of the whole of Ife, but they couldn't succeed because they've lived most of their years. The area where Oyo is the most turbulent region in all the places. Ijabu people didn't really have people they were fighting with, except for a little time when Benin Empire, during the time of Oba Ozolua, was really kind of aggressive towards Ijebu. That was the only time they had some external aggressions. But from that time up until the time of the British, they never really had any issues with anybody. Same with Ife. They were kind of very comfortable in that zone. There was no tension going on. And of course, Benin, nobody can confront Benin in that area where they were until the Galas showed up. The Galas were the only competitors. So the Gala and Benin situation is similar to the Ibadan and Ijebu situation because they ended up going to war during the reign of Oba Isige, and he was only lucky to have the British. He was lucky to have the Portuguese to come to his aid. That was how they could win with the use of gunfire. And that was also what happened when the Owu people started really fighting and they weren't getting anywhere. The Ife people and the king of Iwo now introduced the Awujale. Awujale now sent his soldiers to go and help um Ife people so that they can see if they can defend Akpomo. And that was the war where guns was first used anywhere in Yoruba warfare. That was the first time. Ijebu people were the first to get access to guns because of their luck to be close to the British, and they used it for the first time. That was how they were able to defeat the Owu people, because Owu believed in physical combat using swords. They had I don't know, remember the name they called that sword, but it was big and well shaped. So they did close contact battles. They didn't do arrows like the Baribas. So now Ijabu people from a distance was now firing shots at them and killing them. So they were able to rebrand from there and fight back, but that took them aback. So, but anyway, now all that is gone. The energy now went away from Akpomu, and then the energy came to Ibadan, and then the fear came to Ijebu. Now Latosa now made it very more complicated when he started now showing that, listen, the people that came before him were more interested in chasing away the Fulani people. He was now more interested in building a centralized Yoruba nation. And he now wanted to fight the Egba people until he is able to get access to the coast. Because Egbas were also they were also coastal people. When they were chased out of Ibadan, and their leader, his name then was Shodeke, led a migration from Ibadan, and then the
Show
new
their
place
care.
where
Show their care.
Shodeke, ever been to see me? Shodeke moved them out from Ibadan, and they now settled in another place. Now the migration became a blessing in disguise, because from the new place where they went, they were now able to also access the sea. So so they too became a merchant class. Now Latosa wanted to take their lands and carve out enough to get to the corridors of power. This posed some complication even to him, because his Iyalode in Ibadan at that time was an Egba woman. She was a very rich woman. She was actually financing his wars. So these are part of the things that posed some complications at that time, which I don't want to, that's another story for another day. And I think her name is, I think it's Efun Sheton, right? I think, yeah. Efushiton Aniwura. That was, she was the Iyalode during the time of Arela Tosa. Anyway, now, because of what was happening, Awujale got very uncomfortable. And the Awujale at the throne at that time, his name was Awujale Afidipote, the one that uses his buttocks to destroy his enemies. That's the meaning of his name in English, Afidipote. Now, he now did something. He did a trade embargo and said there should be no business relations with Ibadan. Do not supply them guns and do not trade with them. Flat embargo like that. This is now, he was doing that to support the Egba people, and then he sent his army to help the Egba people. It was around this time that the Kiriji War was going on as well. Now, Modakeke people, because they were traditionally, genetically from of the Oyo block, Ife was not on Ibadan side during the Modakeke war. They were on Ekiti side, Ekiti and Ijesha. So they got angry that Modakeke was siding with Ibadan, even though Modakeke was living on their land. So they turned the attack on Modakeke people. Now, this was a clever attempt, because Awujale Afidipote was like, this is wisdom, because now you will kind of get Ibadan to fight from different fronts, and that will weaken them, plus the trade embargo. Now, the Sheriki, there are two Sherikis in Ijebu. There's the Sheriki of Ijebu Ode and the Sheriki of Ijebu Igbo. The Sheriki of Igbo at that time, his name was Ogunshigun. The Sheriki of Ijebu Ode at that time is Kuku. Now, he sent the Sheriki of Ijebu Igbo, that is Ogunshigun, to lead an army to go and help Ife to fight Modakeke. So that was the politics going on. So Awujale was playing the devil advocate against Ibadan in three ways. One is to give a gun embargo. so that they don't have access to ammunition. And unfortunately, the Alaafin Atoyo at that time, the son of Alaafin Atiba, his name escaped me now. At Adelu, I think his name is Adelu, right? Are, is Are still there? Okay. Are people hearing me?
Aláàfin Adélù Adélù.
Adelu, yeah, yeah. So that was the Alaafin at that time. He was not happy with what I was doing. So he's also not helping him because he had access to the ports at Porto Novo. That was under Oyo at that time. So that was the tension going on at that time. Awujale, this what he did now caused a recession in Ijebu because the merchants didn't have a place to now sell their merchandise anymore, and Ibadan had become the dominant market after Apomu. But he did not realize that. This is where the politics of Ijebu now came into play. The Pampa people, the Pampa, the People's Constitution, they were not comfortable with what he was doing. But the senior chiefs that were in his inner circle were happy with that embargo. But the merchant class was not happy because it was causing a recession and they didn't have things to sell. Now, they now made Latosa to come and persuade Ijebu to please open the trade routes and give them guns so that they can sign a truce. He sent 70 slaves, beads, and clothes to Aujale Fidipote to please help with opening the trade routes. But Fidipote refused and said no, he's not going to do that. Now, Cheriki Kuku was the one that was losing the most because Ijebu-Ode, he as the Cherokee of Ijebu-Ode had some commissions he got from all these trades and he was really losing out. Now he had an arrangement with his general whose name was Onofowokon, and they now started arranging about how they are going to overthrow Fidipote and remove him as Awujale to put another person that would kind of allow some trade with Ibadan people. This is where things got complicated. Now, Awujale now started really kind of getting into a panic because the only person that could stand for him is the Cherokee of Ijebu Igbo, and he was at war at that time. So, Onofowoko now sent a message to Ijebu and said, we're coming, we're marching in. Before we get to Ijebu, you need to have killed yourself. Make sure you've committed suicide. So they came from Lagos. The Akpina of Lagos came to kind of try to intermediate to come in between, but the people refused. The merchant class refused, and Onofowokon refused. By the time they marched into Ijebu-Ode, Afilikwa they had escaped to Ekpe. He carried his load, him and his children ran away to Ekpe. Now, as we said earlier, Ekpe was a land that he gave to Kosoko because Kosoko had Ijebu blood. Kosoko was the great grandson of an Erelu from Ijebu. So when he escaped, Kosoko accepted him and they moved to Ekpe. He moved to Ekpe as a refugee and he lived there until he died. That was when they now made Aboki the Awujale of Ijebu. Then they now reopened the trade post at a place called Oru. And Kuku now became the head of the market at Oru. And they sent Onofowokon to go and stay
Oru.
at Oru. Sorry, thank you. So they sent Onofowokon to the capital. From this place is where Kuku made his wealth. He made stupendous wealth as the getting commission from that Uru market. In fact, a lot of men that could not pay for the guns, they will bring women, maybe their daughters, and give them to him in exchange for guns. And he ended up having a harem of over 60 wives. That was why he ended up a Muslim, because when the missionaries came and he told him to convert, he did not want to part away with his with his wives, and he built one of the most beautiful buildings at that time, which is still in existence today. It's called Olorun Shogo, And so let me stop here before I round up the story because I know a lot of people have things to share, and then I'll take it from there for the final phase.
I think at some point it would be important to also talk about the invasion of Ijebu land by the British and how that also affected for instance, the Egbas and the Ibadan people. But I don't know if we would have time for that now. But let's see if there are
Oh,
still.
who's talking?
Adedapo.
Oh, okay, right. Yes,
Yes.
if we get the time, we'll get there.
All right, thank you. Please, again, this is Yoruba Nation Room on the Clubhouse. If you're just joining us for the first time, or if you have peradventure be part of our programs, but you have not subscribed yet to this room, kindly click on the green house icon so you can get notifications whenever we bring programs like this. Please, if you have questions, right now, uh, just only questions. Please, if you have questions, please just flash your mic. I can see my brother Folusho. Uh, okay, maybe questions and contributions. Folusho and my brother Jide. Folusho, please go first. Then we'll come back to Jide.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you very much, sir. Sorry if my voice is not clear. I've drank the original emu of Yorubas today. Bonka, please, I will, when you, with this submission, I will want you to also go into how the Balogun Kuku sedate the Ekpe, this same Ekpe that you're talking about, to the British. You understand? Because remember that the British has Lagos colony already. So how he sedated that Ekpe to them, how Ekpe now became part of Lagos, because Ekpe is part of Ijebu before. So that is one. Then two, what you said in terms of how he has so many wives and all everything, it is true because that's why they always come up with a song by saying Owo melolo ni tó ń fọmọ kúkú ṣeré, ilé mélòó ni tó ń fọmọ kúkú ṣeré. He has so many children, he has so many wives and horses. In fact, his great grandson they have also kept that tradition that he had. I know how to ride horse via them, and I still use, in fact, I use one of their horses to play polo. So, so I found out that they have history in Ijebu. They have good history. They have bad history. So, how is credited that Ekpe, because he was troubled because of all that Fidipote actually, and other Hawujale, how he will come in his chariot to in grandeur to show his wealth at this so-called, this present, how the beginning of how they started this Ojudioba was how, so there are history to that effect. So I think I will want you to go into those areas, which is like to actually help people to understand what he has done, and then how the Hawujales have problem with him.
All right, thank
And
you.
so I
Thank you so much, my brother. My brother Jide, please go ahead.
Thank you very much to the moderator, especially Professor Bonka, for the elaborate history. You definitely connected some dots that I know little of, but and I witnessed. So you definitely collected a lot of data. I want to say thank you to that. My question is more of analytical reasoning, especially to Bunker, because you mentioned about how one of the actors tried to form a centralized Yoruba government, which wasn't successful before the coming of the white men. So my question is that do you think that it was the coming of the white man, especially the British, that forced a cessation of all these conflicts because there were so many conflicts going on here and there. So, do you think it was the coming of the white man that put a hand to this conflict? That's number one. And do you think that in the emergence of the formation of the new Yoruba nation, do you think that there will be a resurgence of those conflicts that our grandfathers, our grandfathers fought but could not finish fighting? Do you think those would rear its ugly head? Should there be a situation where the current Yoruba generation want to form a new nation? Thank you very much.
Thank you so
Well,
much.
wow, you people are asking powerful questions. Egbamio, Are, are you there? Jared Tisala. Okay, is there someone else that want to go before we address them? Okay,
Please go ahead because of our time.
yes. So I'm going to start with Mr. Folorunsho. Now, Cuckoo. That's why when I was talking about Jebu Day and the Jebu Igbo, it sounded like a derogatory term, but the Ijebu Igbo people, even though there was recession going on and the merchant class was not making money, the Ijebu Igbo people were not concerned about it. They didn't care if the merchant class lost or not. So that was why they stood by Awujale Fidipote's decision. Right. Now, when Ogoshigo, who I mentioned went to war at Ife, came back, he actually went to Oru and started a war with Kuku and was going to, because they declared him an outlaw, because they said he's not going to recognize the new Awujale Aboki, who more or less was like a puppet. So he came back with an intention to go to war, and he went to Oru and he shot Kuku on the leg, and he said the man had that wound until he died. He was limping. Now, Kuku now sent for Ibadan to come and help him. It was Ibadan people that helped him and stopped Ogonshigun from actually overrunning Oru and actually driving him out of Ijebu Ode before now going to Ijebu Gogon and then getting rid of the Awujale because he wanted the Awujale in exile at Ekpe to come back. So after Ibadan people had defeated him, they were going to go into Ijebu and to go and kind of capture him. But it was not the Ijebu merchants and Ijebu nobility that told him not to do that because that would make Ibadan people to know the terrain. And Ibadan is very, Ijebu is very sensitive about people knowing. In fact, there's a proverb that says Ajeji. How do they say it? That Ijebu Ajeji o Kin Wole, something like that. That in Ijebu land, strangers are not allowed in. They never permitted strangers in their kingdom. If you see anybody there, he's either from an Ijebu man at that time or a Portuguese merchant that just came to trade and will be leaving. Those are the two people you'll always see. So that was what it was. So they looked at it more from a liberal perspective in a conservative society that Ijebu was. Now, he was sent into exile at one point before the Maujale sent him on exile at Ibadan. It was after he was deposed that he actually came back, and now that's that. Then two, when the British wanted to take over Ijebu, Kuku was a friend, was very helpful in helping them in that conquest. And I know there's a Kuku descendant here, so out of respect for him, I won't go into details of what happened. But Now, the
No,
British were
no, no, you
desperate.
can go on. He's not here again. You can go on. I'm
Oh,
sure he
okay.
has gone to. Yeah.
Okay. So, yeah, so he was the one who actually told um British people the terrain of how they can navigate through sea to get to Ijebu. And then he was the one that told them some places in the creeks of Ekpe that they should not pass by because of the charms that Ijebu people have put there for anybody that wants to come into Ijebu to attack them. So he was the one that actually did that, and he was placed on a salary of £200 a year because he, like we said earlier, all the trade routes were dominated by were owned by Jebu from the coast, and the British desperately wanted access to the interiors of Yoruba land, and the Jebu people forbade the transportation of any missionary materials from their from their terrain. So if you brought anything from Lagos, you are not allowed to bring it through Jebu. So that's all the problems they were going through. And in fact, Ibadan, at some point, the Ijebu was now asking Ibadan to hand over Yoruba pastors, Anglican pastors that they were hosting, including a man called, I think his name is Obasa, that they should hand them over to them. And Ibadan was going to do that because they kept threatening them that if we tell you to do anything, you don't do it, we're not going to supply you guns. So that war that happened, in fact, Ibadan was part of the people that joined the British because they were happy that finally the trade route was going to be opened. But what they did not understand is that after that war, they came back and told Ibadan, there's not going to be wars anymore. You're not going out to fight wars anymore. So go and start farming. That was when Ibadan started planting rubber and palm oil. All the warlords stopped their wars. So that was how it went on the Kuku side. Now on
Can I
the
quickly add a nuance to that, if that's
yes,
okay?
go on.
All right. So, yes, you've really done a lot of, you've done justice to it. But I think it's also important we understand why Kuku was actually considered a saboteur in Ijebuland, not necessarily because he sort of helped the British navigate the land, during the Magbon War, but it was mainly because, like you said, so the Ibadan people also, so during the Ekiti Parako War, or perhaps after that. The policy of the Awujale was to ensure an economic blockade. So, we're controlling the trade routes and all that. And that affected, the Ibadan, who were mainly in charge of distribution of arms and all that. And then the British too, who wanted the palm oil from the hinterland, could not access, that because the Ijebu they control that route. And Ijebu didn't want anybody to, demonopolize them. So they wanted monopoly of the entire route. So what happened was, Kuku and Onofowokon, who was also one of the leading military rulers or warriors that fought during the war, um, became a bit lenient with the policy and a bit sympathetic towards the Ibadan. And then gradually, Kuku himself became the one that sort of, so he was the one that negotiated. He began to negotiate with the British, to sort of ensure peace in Ijebuland. Now, because the British, had sent their governors and some of their entourage to Awujale to talk about the blockade, but the Awujale refused, and of course, his chiefs also refused, and the British had already started planning to invade, Ijebuland, to fight and of course ensure that there was free trade and legitimate trade, and the routes would then be open to everybody. Kuku, like I said, became sympathetic, and he went against the popular wish of the Jebus. The Jebus really wanted that domination of the route, and in accordance and alignment with the Awujale Fidipote. So, on that basis, Kuku became that person they perceived to be a saboteur because he sort of became sympathetic to the Ibadan. He negotiated with the British, and like you rightly said, he was even salaried, so he was put on a wage and all that. And I think that would somehow, add more light to the way it became perceived as a saboteur. Um, and then the nuance that is there is that he also accepted Islam, right? So there was actually a particular place called the quarters of Onigambari, the Hausa people who were already living in Ijebu then. So due to the proximity of Kuku to the Onigambaris, he converted to Islam, and that somehow also at that time made him a bit unpopular among several people, including even the missionaries, the Christian missionaries, who felt. In fact, they were so hurt by it, they even reported it in the newspaper that Balogun had converted to Islam. So when we add all these things together, we
They
can.
told him to get rid of his wives.
Oh, yeah. So when we add all these things together, we could understand why it was a controversial figure. He's actually very complicated. It's hard to really paint him as a good or a bad person because, again, he was actually very much um, important and paramount to the success of Ijebu's military, conquest and incursions in other land. At the same time, he became sympathetic towards the Ibadan when Ijebu and Awujale were anti-Ibadan, and then he went against the blockade policy, the economic blockade policy, and then at the same time he was negotiating with the British, who were planning to invade Ijebu people at the Magbon War. So there are so many, like, it's a multifaceted understanding of his actual legend. But thank you for that, Mr. Bonka.
Can I add something to or say something regarding that?
Okay. Let,
Go
let me
ahead.
just listen. Adedapo, please, sorry. Thank you for saying that. I needed to also confirm that particular history. And then for the furtherance of what you are saying, Onofowokon is from the Remo division. So that if anybody wants to know the Onofowokon is from the Remo division.
Yes.
Uh, for that, yes. Yeah. Thank you for that. I will go, let me listen to you.
Sorry, thank you for that. I'm actually in Filipote right now. No, that's where I live. So, descendant of the Awujale. It's actually quite interesting. I think that's the first time I've heard that story, and it's almost like brought a dent to my pride of being in this neighborhood. But regarding Kuku, I kind of understood that he was a mason, mercenary, been hired gun by the Awujale, and he's from Ibadan originally. Although he's really honored in Ijebu, but you saying that is what is betrayal? Because the book that I read about him was almost like a peace deal to kind of like stop the oncoming bloodshed to the Ijebus. But your angle on it is actually is quite profound. It's almost changed my whole perception of the history that I knew about Kuku himself and Filipote. So I mean, like, I'm really appreciating the conversation. But regarding Kuku becoming a Muslim, and then that story of Ojidoba, because it seemed as if it's the Kuku celebration. But I might be taking the conversation somewhere totally different, because in my research towards Ojidoba, I realized that Ijebus were doing it before they became Muslims, but it became because I think that Ijebu is probably a 50% or even maybe 60% Muslims, and it was almost in that kind of direction of not wanting to follow the colonial Christians that they all kind of went towards what Kuku was doing, which became Islam. But the story of Ojujoba that I came up about is like the different courts in Ijebu were actually doing that parade before it became the annual horse festival, where it's kind of like attributed to Kuku. So I think that's pretty much my contribution. Not much of a question, but
Yeah,
part of
that
the
is
question is like,
correct.
is he from Ibadan? Was he a
No,
hired
no, no,
gun?
he wasn't. He wasn't from Ibadan.
No, it was.
It wasn't. It's
Yeah.
not possible for an Ibadan man to have been a Shiriki at Ijebu. That would never have happened at that time. But Although Dadidako wanted to sit on the fence, I would call Kuku an ambitious man who was more concerned about making wealth than preserving Ijebu land. That's what I would see. That's how I see him. And people like Kuku, the same people like Tinubu today. They are people who are more concerned about making personal wealth, even if their country runs down. So Kuku could be seen as their founder of Ijebu. That's my own view of him, and that's how I see it.
Mr.
Yeah,
Bonka
yeah.
wants to start war.
Okay, I've stepped down.
No, 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 not the reference. I mean, I'm just saying, like, there are people who are going to, like, push back on that.
No, that's how I see him. Because if you anything that makes you like run your nation under because of your own personal interest, it's very unpatriotic and should never be celebrated. That's my that's my perception. So I will never celebrate any man who was involved in the downfall of his nation, or who played any role in the sabotage of his kingdom. So, and that is what Kuku is. That's what Afonja is. So, based on that, I don't think we should sugarcoat it. Let's just say it as it is. That's my own view. Now, on the situation of if the British that built the modern Yoruba nation. So we always fall into this mistake of thinking that nation building is how the British or the West believe it should be. That's how you see it, Mr. Jide. So we were a united people. We were just a decentralized people. We don't have to have a centralized government to be a united one. And an example I'll give is the Emirates. The Emirates is not a centralized nation, but the Emiratis love themselves. They embrace the identity, share the same passport, no, and have the same nationality. But the emir of Dubai is different from the emir of Abu Dhabi, and it works fine. That's what the structure of Yoruba Nation was. And by the way, it's not only in Yoruba Nation it was like that. It was like that with the Baribas too, and it was like that with the Hausa people before the Fulanis came over and overran their land. So the one of the problems Awolowo had, in spite of the fact that he was a detribalized Yoruba man, gave honor to the Oni of Ife even over his own Awujale. One of the problems he had was the Ekiti-Parappa War. Ibadan people were against him. And I think Mr. Felicia was talking about it. And one of the reasons why Adilabu of Ibadan turned his back totally against Awolowo and started the Mabolaje institution was out of rejection of him because he was a Jebu. And that was one of the reasons why the Jebu people started this song. Ìbàdàn ni wọ́n bí wa sí o, bàbá wa pẹ̀lú. Ah, can someone?
Bàbá
Pẹ̀lú
wọn
wọn
ló nílẹ̀ nìbàdàn
bàbá
ni
wa
ó nìbàdàn ni
Nìbàdàn ni
wọ́n bí wa
wọ́n bí wa.
sí.
That was the Jebu people responding to Ibadan people that no, you can't lay claim on this land. Like we both have it. It both belongs to us. Those were all the things that were spiraling into our generation. So, but I still think we will get there. I still think we can build a nation because what binds us together is not a centralized government, but our ideologies coming from our spirituality. So if we're able to go back to building a nation based on our spirituality and applying how it fits for modern times, because some things about our spirituality obviously would not fit for this our time. I think that's the only way forward. But anything outside that, that's another disaster waiting to happen. So I step down from here.
If I can add to that question, I think my question specifically was the fact that we were fighting war. It's not so much about building nation. I feel like from your history and the more history you recounted, I feel like we have a national structure however decentralized. My question is the fact that the wars that were being fought at that time, do you think that this generation will go back to it? Should we try to have a central
So
unilateral
why
leadership?
were we fighting that war? Do you know why? What caused that war?
Can I answer that question, if that's okay?
I
Yes,
want him
sir.
to answer it first. Do you
Well,
know what? Yeah.
well, I mean, I'm gonna go up what you said. It was because of national interest. The Jebu had some interest. The Egba
No,
had
no, no.
different interests.
There was a bigger picture that actually caused the civil war. That was just the end results. But there was a bigger picture. And okay, I like where you want to go.
Yeah, I would say slave trade caused there was very central to what really caused all these issues
No,
too.
it wasn't slave trade,
No,
Mr.
I mean,
Adedakwa. Hmm.
well, slave trade can be ruled out too.
So what caused the war? What really caused the war was Fulani invasion from Ilorin. That was the foundation of that war. Yes, slave trade played a role, but it was the invasion of the Fulani. They started sacking a lot of cities, and they caused this refugee crisis. Now,
Mr.
this
Bonka,
is yes, go on.
sorry. Now, even the Owu war that you mentioned, and which you also correctly detailed, there's also an element to it that is tied to slave trade.
Yes, but the
Yes.
slaves were the people the Fulani people were bringing there. The slaves that were going there were slaves that were being taken from all those places that Fulani people were raiding.
So one of the things that made the Jebu actually collaborate with the Ife was because the Jebu were being like, so they were threatened. Their involvement in the slave trade their involvement in the slave trade was actually threatened by the Owu warriors, who would attack, their should I say their caravans or whatever, and because at some point
Yes, that's true.
the Jebu had access to European arsenals and artilleries, they were able to wage and wage a war against the Owu people in collaboration with the Ife people. And you've already expounded on that, so there's no need for me to go back to that. But I think we cannot also divorce slave trade from a lot of the civil wars that happen in Yoruba land. We have to be honest about some of these things. Yes, there's also the aspect of the Fulani incursions and how the Yorubas have always worked together to resist these people from invading Yoruba land and conquering us. But at the same time, there were internecine wars among the Yoruba people that were basically about how to supply more slaves to the Europeans, and there were those who wanted to monopolize it. There were those who were against it on based on the principles that they adopted in their social system, and there were those who just felt like because they had more access to arms and guns and they were in charge of the distribution, they didn't want the Jebus to control or monopolize the routes that ensured their access to that particular business. So it's there's a lot of complexity around it too. So yeah, I just want us to be more honest
So
about this thing.
initially, there was a law that you can't sell a Yoruba slave, right? And that was one of the origins for tribal marks. Tribal marks was like a passport. If you see somebody with this tribal marks, you can't sell this person as a slave. The slaves they used to sell were the slaves they brought from across the river from the other side of Jeba. Mostly people of the Middle Belt, the tapas, like people like you see someone like Osho the Tapa. He was from the Tapa region, and he came with his contingent, and Kosoko just liked him and decided not to sell him and keep him in his house, which he rose to be a great warlord. Now, they made the law was made at Akpomo that you cannot sell a Yoruba man. Now, there's a prince. There was a prince at Oyo. I think I've said this story here before. His name was Alafin Aole. He was trying to sell his friend at Akpomo, and they caught him and told him that no, you can't do that. Because he was a prince, he wasn't given the capital punishment, but the Bale Atakpomu said that he should be flogged. Now, Aole would end up becoming king himself at Oyo, and now he now decided that he wanted to revenge, and then he asked that his soldiers should invade Akpomu and kill that Bale. And the Bale ran into the Oni's palace, but of course it was going to become a strong civil war, and he didn't want his city destroyed. So the Bale himself killed himself, and they cut his head and sent it to Alafin Aole. So this was the bitterness that the people of Akpomu had when Oyo fell and they started bringing Oyo people to sell at Akpomu. They had that bitterness about what was done to their Bale and did not stop them from being sold out into slavery. So this was where the complications came from. But I would still say that the whole rumble started with Fulani invading from Ilorin, sacking cities and taking them to sell as slaves.
Yes,
Because
I'll
I
agree with you on that
yeah,
because
yeah.
so that's why I said there are complexities. So by the time when your empire itself declined, right, and like you said, the Fulani sacked your relay or so, it contributed to the cracks that then happened among the Yorubas because Oyo as an empire was actually very central to the, should I say, togetherness or to the collaboration that had existed among all these independent Yoruba kingdoms. The structure was really the structure that the Oyo Empire had was really important to keeping together all these independent subgroups and nations. But by the time the Fulani began to cause the cracks in Oyo, it led to a situation where the decline of the Oyo then allowed the Badon, the Egba, the Jebus to then start breaking away and doing their own thing and trying to then dominate basically become the paramount nation among the Yoruba people. So yes, I'll connect it to that too. Yes, but let me just answer Jide's question because I think he asked an important question regarding whether the Yorubas of today would do the same thing in terms of the civil wars and all that. So my answer to that is definitely we won't. It's impossible. Reason being that one thing that I would one of the many reasons why I adore and admire the likes of Awolowo was because he with others worked on um, ensuring the solidity of the central ethnic identity of the Yorubas, especially when they began to form the Egbeomo Odua. And you will see that in when you are growing, when you're trying to build ethnic nationalism, there are many things you have to do, including ensuring there is that creation of a national myth, ensuring that you unify the national culture, right? And then you also unify the value system. You tell people, look, these are the things you have in common. These are the values you all share in common. These are the legends and the myth that you guys all
The
share in common.
spirituality.
The spirituality, absolutely. So these are the reasons why we all need to now forge a Yoruba identity. You know, sorry, we need to also know that when the British came, the Yorubas were actually at war, right? So it wasn't as if they met a unified ethnic nation. We were really fighting among each other. But, you know, subsequently, the politicians that, our political leaders who came after that particular period began to see the need to form or forge a central identity because they realized that it was about power, right, during the colonial administration. And the Fulanis in the north were actually doing that. Now, the Sokoto Caliphate had already established its dominance, and it had already become like the central block of northern politics. So everything about the north was about Sokoto Caliphate, and it was about the Fulani Hausa ethnicity, and you cannot fight that if you have internecine wars among your people, right? If the Jebus were to stand alone, the Ibadan were to stand alone, the Oyo were to stand alone, these groups will basically be ethnic minorities in a country like Nigeria. So these people, the likes of Awolowo and Co, saw the need for us to then come together as one and then become that Yoruba ethnic nation that we have today. And it was also why when he began to oppose Azikiwe's dominance in Lagos politics, he needed to also kick out certain monarchs, like the one he kicked out in Ibadan. I believe it was Alafin. Was it Olubado Alafin for you? Please, Mr. Bunka, correct
Alafin,
me.
Alafin.
Alafin,
Allah, Allah.
who was
It was
actually,
actually he's the father of this current Alafin that he kicked out.
oh yes, yes,
Even
exactly.
they kicked out this Alaafin plus his father. Alaafin, this current Alaafin is Aremo. So he was also, they sent him off to Lagos together
Okay.
with.
Okay. So yeah, so it was one of the reasons too, because that Alafin was particularly in cahoots with the Azikiwes and a lot of all these Lagos elites who were not really about forging a Yoruba central unity or identity. But Awolowo needed to do what he needed to do. So if after the Egbo Modua came action group, they started fighting in Lagos politics to take power away from foreigners and hand it over back to the Yoruba people, which he also achieved. And then he also influenced the creation of the Literating Constitution, which established regional system, and then of course came Western region. And it was at that point that the Yoruba identity became solidified, because then you now have a region that was entirely about the Yoruba people and their needs and their values. So he was able to then even develop a philosophy that would again unify all these groups together, right? And over time, we can definitely see that the Yoruba people have bonded together since then. We've become, more united in our politics, in our values, and all that. That is not to say that we don't still disagree in one way or the other, but we can definitely see that we've even we've improved, right? There are more inter what should I call it now, intergroup marriages, relations among each other. Those days when you would have Ekiti people saying, no, don't deal with the Jebu people, or Ibadan people saying, or your people saying no to Egba people. We don't have that anymore, right? People are now more open to knowing more about other people. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you
Can I
so
can I
much.
quickly can I quickly
Bunker,
clarify
can
something,
I say
Mr. Bami?
something, please?
Mr. Bami.
Sorry, who's that? Oli. Oli, please. Oli, give me a sec. Let Ola go, and I'll come back to you, Oli.
Okay. Yeah. So, Mr. Adidapo, I understand the point you're making, but at the same time, even though the point is clear and I know where you're going, I also see how people may misconstrue and misunderstand the point you're making because of some rhetoric in some sections that I have preview to have seen. So people give the impression that Yoruba people, the people called the Yoruba people today, they've never been like united. This unity we see amongst them, Kosheleri, is something new with a man called Awulo. So that's the mistaken impression people may get from what you're saying, even though I know what you're saying. So in case someone is thinking along that line, in case someone thinks that's what Adidapo is saying, that's not true. So Yoruba people have always, from the beginning of time, always recognize themselves to belong to one family with different kingdoms, repete, but they know that this is the same culture, this is the same language,
Thank you.
Same
Yeah.
ancestry too. Same
yeah,
ancestry.
same ancestry. The Yoruba people have always recognized
And
that
they've always recognized Ife as a spiritual
exactly.
center.
All
Exactly,
of
as
them.
the
All of
home,
them
all
too.
of them. So let's know this clearly. It wasn't some Awolowo who came to tell them that let's form a kind of imaginary Yoruba. No, it wasn't Awolowo. So when the fighting started, these Yoruba wars, and after the fighting, Awolowo was just like forging that unity. It's a return back to the unity that used to be there, not some
Ah, God
unity
will
that
bless you abundantly.
was made for the first time. So let's be clear on that point. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that's a better way to put it.
Thank you so much. Bonka, do you want to round up now and we can take other questions?
No, let's go to other questions. If we already dealt with it. Yes.
Okay, okay. Ollie, please, let's go.
Yeah, thank you, Bami. What I've got to say is not even a question, really. I'm just going to say, or ask, all the people on here, because I believe. Do you guys think this is my belief? And do you guys think Awolowo is not immortalized enough? Apart from putting his face on the a valueless 50 naira or wherever it is, and the university in Ife, for for what he has done, for what he did for the Yoruba race. Do you think it was, the man is not um, honored enough?
Yes,
You know,
Mr.
Yes.
Ollie,
yeah. So this is my
we
point. You see that Lagos airport, for instance. Yeah, I refuse to call it what what's being called
It is
today.
a sacrilege that
Yeah,
Muritala
it's a slap on the face of Yoruba people. Now, I refuse to call it. Whenever I wanted to travel, they say, "So where you go?" I say Lagos Airport, and they would be asking me, "What do you mean?" You know. So it boggles my mind. That we they put it on the face. It's a 50 naira note. I can't remember, to be honest.
okay, Mr. Ollie. So it doesn't matter to us whether they put it on 15 naira or whatever, because guess what? We're not Nigeria. We are Yoruba nation.
I know.
And that's part of the thing that we're doing here to restore everything back to the way it's supposed to be. And in Yoruba, in the conscience of the real Yoruba people that understand what Chief Awolowo did for us, Chief Awolowo has been deified. He is an Orisha. He is somebody that
Thank
is
you for that.
worthy to be called on his spirit, especially during this time. It's not by accident that you see a lot of people putting his face on here, because whether they like it or not, or they acknowledge it or not, is calling on them to finish the work that he couldn't finish at that time. That is why we appeal to you, all of you Yoruba people, those of you that are sitting on the edge. If you even look at European history, the Polish, they became like this, they vanish from the surface of the earth for almost 100 years. We have vanished for so long. It's time for us to come back and be Yoruba people and have our own nation. That's just what I'm going to say to that. Whether you're a politician or whatever your agenda is, it should be secondary to the cause of Yoruba nation. It should be your life and death, pretty much, because that's your future. They've told us the story of Balogun Kuku. It doesn't matter how much money he's got now. That legacy, it's nothing. It's nothing. Anything that doesn't ensure the survival of your race as a group of people means nothing at the end of the day. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that
Bami, let
powerful.
me finish. One more second. 10 seconds, please. Yeah.
All right, please
Yeah.
go ahead.
I was just saying, it's a slap on our, every Yoruba, person, you, 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 the airport I mentioned earlier on is, I don't even want to say the name. Then you have Tafawa Balewa Square. Then you have Amadu Bello Way. All those BS. You know, what's happening? It's a shame. I'm. It's shameful, to be honest, and it's. Someone asked me sometimes last year. Okay, you don't want to call it. No, why can't we call it Fela Kuti's airport? Why can't we call it Obafemi Awolowo Square or whatever? They change it. Who cares? We have all this Fulani in it, and it makes me sad, honestly. Thank you, Bami.
Thank you so much, my brother. Felusha, I can see you've still got something to say. Please just hold that thought. Let's wrap up. Bonka, do you want to wrap up? Then I can call on Are. Then we can open up the space for everyone.
Yes, I have wrapped up.
Okay, perfect. Are Kurumi, Is Sarah still awake? Please just my brother Felicia, please go ahead.
Yes, okay. Thank you. Let me quickly say to Ollie, um, this, the Ahmadu Bello Way was named after the, the Sardana of, that Sardana. Awolowo in Lagos has two major. He has Awolowo Road and Awolowo Way. Awolowo Way is is a long kilometer or miles in Lagos, especially the Ikeja one. The road is Ikoyi. And let's remember that Lagos has Lagos FCT before they moved to Abuja. So the Lagos FCT has all the names of those old leaders. Now, the Tafawa Balewa Square is because Tafawa Balewa was the first premier. Now, but I think there's a new thing going on now. Lagos State had been able to, um, uh, either by style or by any way, had been able to grab those property from federal government. In fact, they have even tried. They have been able to get the the state lodge, which is right beside the Lagos State um, governor's house. I think that used to be the chief judge house before, chief judge lodge. Now, the names were, it has nothing to do with us. It has to do with the FCT at that time. The Western government owns the Ikeja, part of the Ikeja and all. If you remember that there is a Western building by Net or close to Net or on Boss Street, they have to put it there as part of their own investment to say, oh, we want to register her presence in around the FCT. So if you go to Abuja, all of these names too are in Abuja. You wonder that Abacha is there, IBB name is there, Abu Salam is there. If I have my way, military they should not be named. And also, if you look at it also, the names in Lagos have Bodyland, it has Glover, it has, there's a place called Henry Cow. All of those are colonial names, colonial governors, colonial masters, So I think that part will take over when we can grab our Yoruba nation. But for now, it remains as it is, because otherwise Tinubu have a power to change Bodilon to his name. He owns majority of the property in that place. Alexander can be changed as well. So I think it's not. I know it's sad, especially the Muritala Mohammed airport. We have both Muritala 1 and 2. It is wrong, but those are also in the hand of the legislative. I'm sure if we suggest it to them, maybe they can do something. Otherwise, let's leave it until we get our Yoruba nation. All of those region, all of those stuff belong to us once we can get our Yoruba nation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Do we have any other contributions or comments?
Yeah, I have a comment or contribution, I suppose. 'Cause I'm
Please go
seeing
ahead.
that the conversation is kind of moving to the Yoruba nation aspect, and it's like I think it was Mr. Bunker that mentioned uniting on the spirituality. Is Christianity and Islam part of our spirituality? Are we really ready? I mean, I'm not about are we, that are people
That's a good
ready?
question. Christianity and Islam is our religions. It's
No,
not our
but I understand.
spirituality.
I understand what you're saying. I understand what you're saying totally. But is there? It would be like a hard sell to get people away from that and accept. I don't know what you call it, Ifa worshipping, or
No,
adoration of
no, no, no.
or Orisha.
You mixed it up. You did you start this program with us?
Um, I started when you were talking about Ijebu ancestry, so I mean that's why I'm like the conversation has kind of shifted from,
Yes.
you mentioned
Did you hear when we were talking about the government style of Ijebu?
I totally understand you, and I'm more than proud or so to be Ijebu, even so to be Yoruba, even so to be African, but it's in the sense of like the spirituality aspect of what is done. I do walk into it. I am an Ifa, what's it called, initiate. And I have families that they can't even begin to understand how and why. So, and they're probably more Yoruba than me, the way in the manner in which they speak and the culture of accepting it more than I do. But I've accepted the Ifa principles. I have my own, orishas that
So
I
this
I
is what I
adhere
want
to.
you to.
But is that aspect of like saying I do know the way people frown their face towards it. That thing has to be engineered to change. And I'm sorry to have to say, it has to be engineered to change. The
Okay.
acceptance
Yeah,
of
I
this
get your
will, and then
point.
the other
Can you
question
can
where you
you
guys
hear
were
me?
talking about war, that it can lead to another form of war. So I mean, it's the willingness to accept our spirituality in its whole entirety, which is our governments, which is what you're talking about. The government will have to be in that line and accepting that form of
Okay.
spirituality.
Can you hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, sure. Can you?
Hello? Oh, okay. All right. I lost connection for a minute. Now, do you know who Orunmila is, right? You
Yeah,
know who
sure, sure,
Orunmila
sure,
is?
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay. What would you call Orunmila?